Fala galera, tudo bem com vocês? Recentemente saiu a notícia que o Brasil tinha sido escolhido para sediar o Mundial Gamechangers desse ano de 2023. Gamechangers, pra quem não sabe, é o cenário inclusivo do Valorant. E é claro que a escolha repercutiu bastante. E recentemente, durante o último Plat Chat, podcast que é composto por casters da língua inglesa, eles falaram sobre essa escolha do Brasil como país sede. E alguns deram suas opiniões por lá.
I think we should also talk about the choice of Brazil as a spot for Game Changers. Specifically, something that stood out to me in Leo's statements was that he continued to say men and women rather than using even more inclusive language that includes trans, that includes NBs, that includes a whole bunch of other marginalized players in the community. And Brazil is, I guess they're choosing it because Team Liquid Brazil had some success. I guess they're choosing it because they have a large Brazil studio that they can use. But it's somewhat disappointing that we're selecting places that aren't necessarily known for like good treatment of the LGBTQ community that we're trying to uplift with this Game Changers initiative. Not necessarily like speaking of any statistics or anything like that, but there are places in the world that are much, much, much better suited to celebrate LGBTQ people in general. So choosing Sao Paulo and Brazil, which we just went to, by the way, is definitely kind of odd to me.
Yeah. I mean, I was having this conversation with the people in my community as well about that too, because the thing that stands out is that there's massive rates of violent crime and murders, right? Like it's the #1 place in the world for murders of trans people globally. But part of the reason when you dig into that further is that the murder rate in Brazil is insane. Like their murder rates are extremely high and their population is massive. So when you look at, I digged into the numbers a little bit here again, but it's like there's 8 murdered trans people per million inhabitants for Brazil, which is 8 times higher than the US, which is crazy. But their murder rates are also significantly higher just overall. But there's still about like 50% more, 45% more, something like that, murdered trans people for every 1,000 murders in Brazil compared to the US. So it's not as extreme as it looks when you first see that stat, but it's still not a,
not a good picture. It's not a good look.
It's not a good It's not a good look. And it's also not just a good look. It's not really even about the optics. It's about like putting the community that you are trying to have a like safer atmosphere for into a country where they might not feel safe. It's a bit,
absolutely.
It's a bit odd.
Yeah, it is just fucking ridiculous.
Mas e aí, qual a sua opinião sobre o que foi falado? Deixe aí nos comentários, pois ainda falando do Plat Chat, durante esse mesmo episódio, eles também falaram sobre a mudança da crew, que foi a saída do Xand e a entrada do Xand na equipe.
I don't know. I feel like they needed some kind of change, but I don't know if this is.
What I also don't quite understand is that there's other free agents available in the like LATAM circuit that would have made sense if they wanted to fully reshift their roster heading in. Like, if you're going to make these kind of changes, why not make more changes and try and restructure the team dramatically heading into the circuit? Because it's clear when you look at the competition in the Americas League that crew are somewhere towards the bottom of the pile, right? And just making a couple of shifts isn't going to move the needle too much. Yeah, Kesnit might be a good enough player to get you a map win here or there when he has a pop-off game, but he's not going to shift the needle much over the course of an entire season, I don't think. So if you're really aspiring to do something, then maybe you want to be looking towards some of the other players that, some of the players that got dropped by Leviathan earlier on in the year, or some of the other players that have been coming up through the LATAM circuit. But instead, they have kept some of their players that didn't have great performances. Like Klaus was the IGL, but he wasn't putting up huge numbers or anything. His gameplay wasn't anything massive to write home about. But now that he's not IGLing, seems like a player that you could maybe make an upgrade on. Nags as well. I mean, we've seen some really poor performances from Nags at previous events. Some up, some down, but mostly down. And he's still on the roster, whereas Xand isn't. I don't understand it. It doesn't look like it's the most talented roster they could have put together.
Pois é, deixa sua opinião sobre isso aí nos comentários e vamos para a próxima notícia. Pessoal, antes da próxima notícia, peço que confiram se estão inscritos aqui no canal. Estamos bem perto de bater a marca de 50 mil inscritos, então já confere aí para fortalecer e também deixa aquele like nesse vídeo. Essa janela de transferências do cenário brasileiro também está bem movimentada. Os times do VCT Brasil estão se preparando para disputar o segundo split, e a equipe que se movimentou dessa vez foi a Canal. O RND não está mais nos planos da equipe, e o jogador comunicou isso nas suas redes sociais. Salve rapaziada, anunciando que estou FA, fui liberado do contrato com a Canal, e estou em busca de propostas para o segundo split do Challengers. Obrigado pela torcida Red. A lineup da Canal agora fica com CTC, KBX, GTN e Leozinho, e eles precisarão ir atrás de um outro player para entrar no lugar do RND. Mas é isso, rapaziada, o vídeo vai ficando por aqui. Deixa a sua opinião sobre tudo isso aí nos comentários. Deixa também aquele like e se inscreve no canal para não perder nada. Aquele abraço, até o próximo vídeo.